Hi, Fiber friends. Welcome to the Fiber Artist Podcast, and thank you for tuning in today. If you're enjoying these episodes, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube. I often get emails and DMs letting me know that you love the pod. Thank you so much for those. I really appreciate them. But please also try to leave a comment on the episodes. It's the easiest way to support the podcast, and it's free and only takes a second. Now, for today's guest, the wonderful and talented Ashley Thurman of Loom Denim, based near St. Louis, Missouri. Ashley and I had a great and very informative chat. Some of you might know Ashley from the beloved Fibreshare program that she co-organized for several years. We spent a lot of time chatting about Fibreshare and why it's been on hold. So if you're like me and you've been wondering what's up with the program and if it's coming back and why it hasn't been around for a while, you'll get all your answers shortly. So keep on listening. We'll get into all of it, I promise. And I've had lots of people ask me if there is some place to get your yarn and rope scraps spun into yarn. Well, Ashley is definitely your girl. You can find her online at loomdenim.com and on Instagram at loom_denim. All right, without further ado, here's Ashley. Okay, so can you start off just by letting people know who you are, your name, your Instagram account, and TikTok or whatever you want to promote, and then and your website.
Yeah, Ashley Thurman. You can find me at Loom Denim, loom_denim on Instagram, TikTok, and my website is loomdenim.com.
Awesome. Thank you. So I was realizing that I think I tend after 40 episodes, I'm realizing that I tend to start these out wondering how I know the person that I'm chatting with. So I was thinking back, and I mean, for sure, like in 2015, I did Fibreshare, for each time you guys offered it, but I don't think I ever knew who was behind it until much more recently, like, I don't know, maybe two years ago or something like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I started following the Loom Denim account much more. Did you have that up the whole time that you guys were doing Fibreshare?
The Loom Denim?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. It was just my name at first.
Okay.
And then somewhere along the lines, I can't remember exactly when I decided to move to more of a brand, as we all tend to do.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. I know it was like all of a sudden I'm like, wait, no, yeah. I think I remember I remember following you as Ashley Thurman, but yeah, then when you switched over, I think you're right. I think it just became maybe more recognizable or something. But yeah, I don't know. Tell me how you got started in this fiber journey of yours.
Yeah, so I didn't really know fiber arts was a thing until I went to college. And I had always been kind of artsy throughout my adolescent years, but it wasn't anything that I pursued because parental expectations.
Yeah, of course.
My mom wanted me to be a school teacher and or a nurse like she was. So it never really felt like an option.
She wanted those recession-proof occupations.
Which, these days it's like, did she have a point,
Yeah, I know. I feel you.
But I went to college and I was undeclared for a while. I was just kind of undecided on what I wanted to do. So I took some general art courses, and one of them was Fibers 101, and learned to weave on a floor loom, and we did natural dyes, and eventually we started experimenting with like surface design, and I really enjoyed it.
What is that? What is surface design?
Dyeing, like fabrics, designs and things like that.
So within fibers, right.
Right. I think it more like you could take it more to be like to transition into the commercial industry, like designing fabrics and things like the rugs, even things like that.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And where were you going to school?
Southeast Missouri State University.
Okay. Cool.
So
that's cool that they offer a whole segment on fiber. I mean, that's really cool. I don't think a lot of schools do that.
It wasn't a big program, but it was, I just fell in love with it. And I liked that it was small as well. There was only a couple of us that were actually majoring in fibers. So it was very accessible. And, you know, you had a lot of one-on-one time with your professors and things like that. So I loved it, and I decided to major in it. And I guess the rest is history, except for the fact that I didn't finish college. I don't want to you know, make people believe that I have a degree in fiber arts, because I don't. Do I think you need one? Not necessarily.
Yeah. Sounds like you got what you needed from school, which is exactly the way it should be done, to be quite honest, especially now. Right. I'm looking at college as like, and I mean, I'm from a very, you know, education is the most important thing, right, kind of family. But nowadays, the more I look at it, I'm like, really, is it worth the $100,000 that it now costs to send your kids to school? You know, it's like a totally different thing. There's no promise to get out on the other end and have a job. And, you know, and that's not even talking about a job you like. You know, exactly. It's like, am I going to be guaranteed some great office job that maybe pays decently, but that I hate, you know, going to every day? I mean, it's, you know, it's just not I guess just what it used to be, you know?
Exactly. It's not. And, I ended up leaving because my son was born, and we moved back home. Me and my husband. He wasn't my husband at the time, but he is now. We moved back to my hometown, and there was several years that I didn't do anything. I tried to.
Well, you were a mom. I mean,
right.
You were in the thick of raising a newborn and a toddler.
Right. So. And he was also born deaf. So we were doing a drive every day to a deaf school that was an hour and a half away. So I just didn't have a lot of time, mental capacity to really focus on anything creative for a long time, until he actually transitioned into a public school around first grade.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing that he was able to transition. Were you able to find treatments for his hearing, or did he just learn to, you know, live with not being able to hear?
Yeah, he wears hearing aids in both of his ears. And the deaf school that we chose focuses on auditory, like teaching. So it was more or less like teaching him how to talk. Mm-hmm. So it was a very intensive program. And yeah, I mean, now he's 14. You can't really tell a difference, you know, unless you see his hearing aids, then you would know. But yeah,
that's incredible.
A lot of work. Yeah. And his hearing loss isn't, he's not completely deaf. So there is some hearing there, but there's, you know, not much.
Mm-hmm. And did you go through the process of learning sign language?
No. And that's kind of like a controversial answer. I'm sure not everybody to agree with it. But at the time, we were young parents, and we didn't really have the support system within our family to kind of justify learning sign language, because it would only be us who were using it with him. And it was very important for me, like, that he could communicate with his family members or his peers. And, you know, to be honest, ASL is kind of one of those things where you have to be like in an ASL community,
right?
You know, and where we live, it's like nobody knows it. Mm-hmm. So it was one of those things where I just had to kind of weigh my options and decide what was best for us. And we couldn't at the time just pick up and move to somewhere where the ASL community was, you know, bigger or more relevant for us. Right. So
that's so interesting. I mean, that must have been a really hard time for you to have to decide. I mean, it's kind of like a crazy fork in the road where you're like, well, we either have to go one way or the other and fully commit to whichever way that is.
And now, like, he's 14. I do have regrets that
Do
he
you?
doesn't know sign language. He knows a little bit. We took him to a lot of different camps when he was younger, where his peers did sometimes use sign language. So he picked up some there.
Mm-hmm.
But I do now, I'm like, man, I really wish we would have just, maybe done both.
Mm-hmm. But you didn't, but you didn't have the resources at the time. I totally get that, though, where you're like, I feel the same way with a lot of things that I feel like I coulda, woulda, shoulda, with my kids, for sure. Like with the way that they eat now, I'm like, I wanted to do baby-led weaning when they were little. And with the first kid, that failed miserably because I can't deal with all the choking and gagging. And neither could my husband. I mean, he's even much more of a hypochondriac than me. So I thought I could kind of power through. I'm like, they said that they'd choke. They said that they'd figure it out with their gums and all this stuff. And I was like, I don't know. He'd be like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to kill him? Like, so now he eats nothing. Now he eats only chicken nuggets and like hot dogs and pizza.
Oh, no.
And that's it. So yes, lots of regrets.
Like my 6-year-old. So.
Really?
No worries. No judgment for me.
It's hard, man. Motherhood's hard. We try our best. We do our best.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where we were. He was about 7. We decided to transition him into public school. And that's when I was kind of like at a point where I was like, okay, I have all this time now to create. What do I want to do? And I think I was scrolling on Instagram one day and I saw a post from Marianne Moody.
Yay, Marianne.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know how to do that. And that's when I started an Instagram account and just it started off just as me weaving.
Okay.
And kind of experimenting with that.
Awesome. When you started back up, did it sort of spark something again in you, like right away? Or were you just like trying to find some way to fill time? Like what were you feeling at the time?
I kind of was like one of those things where I like fell down the rabbit hole immediately. And I was weaving all the time. Like basically if I was sitting down, not doing anything else, I had a loom in my lap.
Nice.
And it was, it's like when you find something again, you're like totally like sucked in and involved. And it was great. It just felt great to find it again and have that creative outlet. And like at that point, like I started talking to other weavers and other fiber artists. And it was like this whole world that I had just forgotten about, basically. This whole part of me. So it was really great.
Do you remember like when that was, like what year?
That was 2014.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right. Oh, nice. So then and we don't have to dwell too long on Fibreshare, but I mean, this is my entry to you, I think, which is why I do want to talk about it a little bit. But, I don't know for those of you listening, if you ever had a chance to participate in it. Ashley and who was it with you doing it?
Beth.
Ashley and Beth had this thing called Fibreshare. I'll let you explain it.
Yeah. So in 2015, I had been weaving and sharing for about a year on Instagram. At one point, somebody like messaged me and she was like, hey, and she lived in Australia at the time. And she said, hey, we should swap yarn. Cause like at that time, yarn and like different fibers wasn't as readily available as it is now. Like, I think the only place I really had to shop was Michael's.
Do you remember who that was?
Yeah, Cherry Green Slade.
Okay.
Cherry Green Slade. Yeah. I'm not even sure if she's on Instagram anymore. But yeah, we kind of went from there and invited 7 different weavers. And I think Rainey from the Unusual Pair joined us. Wallflower Weavings. I'm Sophie. I can't remember her last name. She joined in, and there was a few other people. And we swapped packages, and it was so much fun. That's
awesome. I asked with such intensity because I had Julie from Little Loom from Australia, we would chat in DM. And so we did like a fiber swap between us. I was like, oh my God, I wonder if it's her. And she sent me like the coolest package of stuff. I feel like I didn't do the exchange justice. Like I
mean, we all have our like different ways of swapping and sending things, but yeah, so that was our first swap. It was, I think, at the end of 2014, that one was. And then in 2015, we opened it up to everyone else. Kind of as officially Fibreshare. Yeah, I can't remember how many people joined that first round.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Like, how did
I think it was like 60 or something. So more than 7, but not quite like what it eventually became.
Yeah. And so how many years did you guys? It was twice a year? Maybe once a year.
2 to 3 times a year. It just depended like on timing or like what was going on in our lives. But yeah, from like 2015 to 2020.
Oh, is that when it ended? 2020. Yeah. Wow. So it ended because of the pandemic, kind of?
Yeah. There was a lot of different things kind of going on behind the scenes. So for a while there, everything was great. People were meeting each other, and that was kind of our mission. Is Fibreshare, it was a project to connect people beyond the screen. Mm-hmm. So, social media is great, but a lot of times you kind of miss that deeper connection. And Fibreshare was a way for fiber artists. We had like knitters, crocheters, weavers, like the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
And people really enjoyed it. People would meet people like in real life to swap packages or like continue their friendships past rounds. And it was really awesome just to kind of see that and kind of facilitate that kind of, community, that sense of belonging.
Totally.
But then like, as things grew, we eventually got to the point where we had 2,000 participants.
Oh my God, so much.
Right.
I always wondered, like, how are they logistically doing this? Like matching people up? Because I know you would ask preferences, like, are you willing to send internationally? And then you're also matching knitters with knitters and like weavers with weavers and that kind of thing. And I was like, God, this sounds like a logistical nightmare. I did not understand how you guys were able to do this.
Well, in my previous job, I was really good at spreadsheets. So that's kind of like how I approached it. So I had a huge spreadsheet with like your main columns, like, do you want to ship internationally, or are you a knitter? What type of like fiber philosophy do you like? Sustainable yarns, or are you natural yarns, or do you like acrylic only? That kind of thing. So I would have different points to kind of go off. It would take me about a week.
Yeah,
to do.
That's what I mean. So many variables, like to even try to get people's, fine, globally or staying in the US. That's one thing. That's easy. That's an easy fix. But like materials, colors, you would ask people's color preferences, things like that. And I was like, oh my God.
And I think, like for me, from my standpoint, I thought that was like a really great thing. But then also like, I think people, and not everyone, assumed that we were going on Instagram and looking at everybody's profiles and matching people up that way.
Oh, no, I never thought that.
There was no way we could, no way we could do that with 2,000 participants, maybe 60.
Right.
But not 2,000. And so, like, as it grew, like, and started to kind of get out of control. And then, we started having these conversations in the fiber community about, politics or, racial inconsistencies in society. And we started to notice a shift. And it got to the point where every time I opened my emails or DMs, I would have someone upset with who we matched them for whatever reason. Oh yeah.
I am.
Oh
wow.
yeah.
Can you
Or
give,
like,
can you give an example? Like, because they didn't, I mean, I don't know. Can't fathom that they didn't want to be matched with a person of color, or they wanted to be matched with a person of color, or yeah, I mean,
it went both ways.
Yeah.
Or like they didn't like the person's political views, or even like something as simple as they didn't like their Instagram feed, like it wasn't good enough or aesthetic enough for them, or they didn't like the fact that they were shipping to a certain country. You know, it was just kind of one of those things where like the people who participated and kept an open mind, I'm not like in any way trying to like say that they ruined it, that they were awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I think there were people who really approached Fibreshare with an open mind and an open heart and made it what it was. But then there was also like this behind the scenes thing that was going on that in retrospect, I wish I would have shared more about what was going on. But it was really important for us to kind of keep Fibreshare a safe space. So I didn't really share a lot of the types of emails or complaints we were getting behind the scenes because I didn't want anyone to feel like, you know, oh, she must have rematched me with someone else because of X, Y, and Z.
Right,
you know,
right.
I always kept it very like generic, like we have to rematch you because like so-and-so has something going on,
Right.
you know?
Right. God, this is so crazy. I had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. I'm sure nobody. Yeah.
Because me and Beth, it was very important to us to kind of keep Fibreshare safe, you know?
Yeah.
And so we didn't share any of those details.
I mean, it's interesting because it is definitely, it's like reflective of what was happening in culture at the time. I mean, really between 2016 and 2020, it was just like a hotbed of like every issue coming up with, with everybody kind of just being on eggshells and needing to speak out in certain ways, which maybe were counterproductive. You know, like it's a really interesting shift that's been going on, I think, overall.
For sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And man, even fiber's not safe. I mean, and I knew like inclusivity was a topic of conversation big time, you know, like we want to see more people of color and things like this. But then I would never think that within the realm of Fibreshare that kind of thing would even be part of the conversation. It was like, listen, you got matched with whoever you got matched up with, have fun with it. And that's it. It's fiber. Like, let's all share in the joy of creating and for free.
And that's kind of like, why can't we just have fun?
Exactly.
And I hate to say that because I'm not trying to like any way, like minimize anybody's, you know.
Of course. But the whole point of it was, it's really like a fully, to fully embrace and give everyone an opportunity to create with fibers that you're getting for free. First of all, like, you know, you're doing this exchange because it's going to save a lot of people money. It's fun to put together. You can in
the spirit of friendship.
Exactly.
Like, why can't we even just, you know, accept that people are different from us.
Right.
And, you know, what's the fun in getting matched with someone who's exactly
like you? Exactly. Oh gosh, I know. Wow. So that's what was going
on. Yeah. And it got to the point where like I would seriously have like a deep-seated worry of like what would happen if something happened to one of our participants because we matched them up with another person, you know, because it was just that was the way things were at the time. Like you never knew. And so we continued on. We kept trying to like make changes in the process to kind of eliminate those worries and those issues. Like at one point we stopped sending mailing addresses with, you know, partner info. That was something that partners shared at a later date once they felt comfortable with their partner. And that helped a lot, kind of relieve that stress and that worry. But then 2020 happened and COVID happened. And
Oh, hold on.
basically.
Wait, sorry, repeat. It just went
Um,
frozen for a minute.
oh no, like then 2020 happened. We had our last round March of 2020. So that was just like right when things were starting to happen,
Yep.
of course. And excuse me. Um, it just kind of exploded. I don't even know like another way to explain it. Packet like hundreds of packages went missing.
Oh,
People could no longer afford shipping. Excuse me.
I guess this is before
People,
all the stimulus checks got out there.
right? Like people were being laid off
Yeah.
from their jobs. They couldn't afford shipping, so we were helping
Yeah.
with shipping as well as replacing packages. Participants, I mean, died in some
Right.
circumstances, or they had family members who died
Oh, wow.
from COVID. And I don't want to say it was traumatizing.
Oh, that would be trauma. You can say it was traumatizing. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
it's
That's a
just
lot.
every day it was just an onslaught of issues. And I mean, it went on for the whole year. I don't think we finished replacing packages or making sure everybody was good until Christmas of that year.
Wow. And were
And
you
it was something
replacing packages and covering shipping like out of your own pockets?
we used what we earned on that round of Fibreshare
Yeah.
to kind of, make everything run smoothly. But that also meant that we didn't get paid for any of the work
Right.
that we did that.
Right.
And so once that was all finished, it just got to the point where like I was so relieved at that point to not have to do it for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
And when you asked if we could talk about Fibreshare, like I've been so nervous about it because I've kind of avoided the subject for so long. There's been people who've asked when's Fibreshare coming back, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I love Fibreshare. It was my baby. It is my baby, I guess I should say, and I don't want to let it go quite yet. But at the same time, I don't know how to bring it back to where it's sustainable, if that makes sense.
I mean, I can't really begin to, I'm thinking of ways you can do it, but obviously because I'm not behind the scenes with you, I don't know quite like exactly all the things you have to deal with. But I'm wondering if you can just do random try to match up by two things, like what kind of fiber artist you are, and then where you're willing to, not even where, international or US, and then just give a disclaimer. Be like, this has been done randomly by a computer. That way it takes a lot less work for you to do it. And then there's no, nobody can say you're personally trying to do something or there's anything personal behind it. It's like, we're matching you up. We want to make this fun. It's just what it is.
You get what you get.
Exactly. And that's what it is. You do get what you get. And like, maybe it's, but then I wonder if it takes out the fun of the community portion.
And that kind of froze up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. I'm just saying, I wonder if it takes out that community portion or the part where you're trying to match people so that they would want to connect in real life, and so it's hard. I get it. I'm so glad you shared with me and that you're sharing it on the pod so that people can really hear the full story about what happened, because I definitely had no idea that this was going on. And I don't think anyone would blame you after hearing what a shit show it became. Yeah.
It really was, and I hate that it became that way because like I said, I really loved Fibreshare. It is one of those things that I hold like a special part of myself for, but I just, and like, I don't know, I don't even know what to say really. And that's kind of why I've hesitated from sharing for so long, because there's been times I've logged into the Fibreshare account with the intent of posting something like an update to be like, this is where I'm at. And like, I just can't physically bring myself
It's a lot. I know. Plus,
right.
you'd be, oh God, having to double check what you're saying. And then you're worrying about people attacking you. And like,
right.
if you open it up for comments, then, and then, I bet you'd be sitting
and
there revising it for a week.
For comments, then people, have an issue with that.
Exactly. You can't win. Yeah. And that, honestly, it's part of what I hate so much about social media, and that, it's the loudest people are, it's like the person who takes the time to write something negative. It's like, right. You can get one negative thing out of 1,000 positive things, but you're going to dwell on the negative one. Even when you don't know the person, we all want to be able to just go on with our day that day, but it ruins the whole day. It's hard. It's hard. I totally get it.
That's the way it was like every day for years.
Yeah.
We'd have people in the DMs and in the emails. I remember one time I sent a newsletter when a round began, like, make sure you reach out to your partner. And it was just like tips to get the most out of the experience. And somebody was like, I hate these emails. And it's like,
oh my God. Well, then just delete it or don't participate. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. But like, I'm really glad that you gave me the opportunity to come on here today and talk about it, because it does feel a little bit like a weight,
Good.
And like come off my shoulders a little bit. And, I can share this and be like, you want to know what's happened to Fibreshare? Well, this is, explains a little bit of it, and just get the conversation started a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing it.
You probably got a lot more than you bargained for.
No, it's interesting. I think it's like, it's also like kind of a fascinating topic, because if you think about it as this blip of time where it was just a perfect storm of negativity, like those, 3 to 4 years or whatever, it just was. And unfortunately, you took the hit, or you guys both kind of took the hit. It's interesting, and it's a little sad, and I know that we as a culture can do better, Well,
and I do feel like maybe if I thought about it and maybe tried to scale back a little bit more, maybe Fibreshare could eventually come back. But I look at like what's going on in the news, and I know that it's not that time yet.
Yeah.
Like especially, and we pride ourselves on being an international fiber swap. Well, there's like countries that you can't even like ship to.
Ukraine, Russia is
yeah. So
I know.
It's just one of those things where like I think I need to sit on it a little bit more and brainstorm, and like maybe people will have some ideas after this that they can throw my way. We'll see.
It's interesting you say that, because I struggle with it all the time, like acknowledging things that are going on in the world and in our country, and school shootings, and Russia, Ukraine, and there's so many things every day that we can be acknowledging. And I'll sit there on Instagram, like write it a post, and I'm like, do I need to acknowledge this before I post? And it's crazy, because like even like Memorial, like 4th of July is now controversial,
right?
So I'm like, okay, don't post that day, like it. But I'm like, oh, but by removing my voice and like not standing up, does that mean I'm not an ally for certain things? It's become so hard, because I feel helpless and silenced, because I'm so many times it's just that my own opinion isn't very well formed. So I don't have a lot to say on certain subjects.
I completely agree. There's been times where like, I know I've said the wrong thing, or I should have said something when I didn't. And I just try and remind myself that like, I am a kind person, and I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to,
Totally. We're all going to make mistakes, and we're all going to say the wrong thing. We've all said the wrong thing and could probably be canceled at any moment or whatever for because times change and things that used to be acceptable are no longer acceptable. And it's hard to even joke about things now and whatever. I mean, I'm not a comedian, but I listen to so many comedy podcasts and they're all bitching about it. So I'm like, yeah.
I relate.
Yeah, I do though, because it's hard. I mean, even this recent, like as a shop, like as a yarn store, I'm like, I 1,000, let me tell you, I 1,000% support Pride and everything around it. And, but it's like, there's that little worry, like if I acknowledge that, am I going to lose all these customers? But then that's also stupid because, you're also gaining a lot. And also that's not the point, but It is human and it is my livelihood. So you do think about that kind of thing. Right. I don't know. I once was, a feminist magazine like wrote up they did an article on me and I remember posting and like some lady came at me like, feminist my ass, you ladies don't know any, like we do have equality now and all this stuff. And I was like, like what? And then of course she ruined that. She ruined that whole day. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like that one comment.
And I'm like, how self-hating are you? But then her whole thing was like, how there's like waves of feminism and they're all fighting each other now. And it just feels like this endless cycle of internet vitriol. And it's, if we keep going down that path, we're not going to be okay, as a society.
I know. And I even it's funny, you mentioned that the other day, I just had a shop update yesterday with some yarn and it was like all different colors, like almost like the rainbow. And like, I had an idea to like arrange them like a rainbow and use a song that talked about a rainbow. But then I was like, it's Pride Month. I don't want anybody to get the wrong impression that I'm like profiting.
That's the other thing.
Pride Month, And
that's the other thing. Yes.
I was like, should I do this or is this wrong? And he's like, well, you better just not do it. Even though like I wasn't even like thinking,
yes,
about that. But I didn't want anybody to get the wrong impression. So I didn't do it.
Right. No, that's what exactly. So like when I did I'm doing a sale this week and 10% of the profits are going to the Trevor Project. And I was like, I hate it because it feels so hokey to hop on the bandwagon of it being Pride Month because I support this cause, 12 months out of the year. But this is a time to do it. And if I don't do it right now, then by omission, I'm not doing the right thing. Like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And I fucking hate it. Like this
But then if you do it, there's always going to be that worry that someone's going to like be like, well,
she's just doing it because it's
right.
Right. I know.
So, it's hard.
It is so hard. I know. So usually, in most cases, I just don't post on that day where we're supposed to be acknowledging something because I'm like,
and same.
Just gonna be quiet.
Same. I didn't post my rainbow, so
I think you can. Everybody loves rainbows anyway, so
Maybe next month. I don't know.
Oh
just
God.
To be safe.
I know. Well, I guess it's nice to know that we're all kind of thinking the same thing and worrying in the same way. But yeah. Let's talk about spinning because there have been so many times where people will ask me, oh, I have all these scraps. What do I do with them? And you are one of the only people, as far as I know, you're the only person who, and I don't even know if you still do this, but you used to take people's scraps and spin them into yarn. Number one, are you still doing that? You're just taking people's? And number two, I don't know. When did you start spinning? And tell me the whole story of spinning.
Yeah, so I started spinning after my daughter was born in 2016. And that's because after she was born, I had no motivation whatsoever to weave. And I'd always wanted to learn how to spin. I think I had this, at the time it felt very unrealistic, a goal to spin all my yarn, for my weavings, and dye them all. But I'm actually doing
You're doing a lot of that now. Yeah.
So, but at the time it felt like kind of like a dream that was way off in the distance. So I tried to do drop spindling, failed miserably. I'm not like, people always ask me, do you drop spindle? And I'm like, no.
Yeah, I tried to
figure that out.
I tried to, and it's slower, and it would take a long time to get all that length.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just not fun for me. And I never really, like, all the yarn I've spun on it, like, was never really good or usable. So I kind of took a leap and bought an affordable wheel. I mean, it's still like $300-$400, which I know is not in everybody's budget.
It's an investment, and clearly one that's paying off for you.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just started spinning. And at the time I didn't have any, well, I'll take that back. I did kind of start spinning because I wanted to learn how to spin my own yarn scraps, because I saw someone, I can't remember where they lived. I think they lived in Britain, but at the time, but they are the UK. They were spinning yarn scraps, but they weren't really like, it wasn't their niche, I guess you could say. But I was like, I want to learn how to do that, and it was kind of like a goal. But at first I just spun a bunch of like really crappy yarns to kind of get used to it, because it's not one of those hobbies where you can just start and be good at right away. It takes a little bit of practice.
I have learned this, and I have therefore stopped learning.
No. It does eventually click. I can attest to that. Like, eventually your fingers and your brain, like, and your legs, they all line up together. But it took a while. I mean, I think a couple months until I was like making something that I was like really like, man, this is really awesome.
And did you just like watch YouTube videos to try to get started, or did?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very much like one of those type of people that like, I like that classes are available, but I'd rather just like jump in and try and do it myself first. That could be really good, but that could also be really bad.
Yeah.
So I started doing that, and I loved it. It got to the point where like I enjoyed spinning more than I did weaving at the time. And so I started incorporating my yarn scraps, and then I started taking yarn scraps from other people. And honestly, like 99% of the stuff I've spun since then have all been yarn scraps, just because I'm in love. I'm like obsessed with it.
I know. I love it too. Like what you're posting lately, and what you're making, and your yarn packs that you're making with them. I mean, it's like the coolest stuff. It's the best.
Thank you.
So much texture, and you can mix in all the colors. I think making the bats, like that's super fun. It's just the spinning part that I'm lost on. I'm like, I don't get this.
Well, I mean, you could do it. I know you could.
I think I need, with macrame and with weaving, it was like I could sort of self-learn or whatever. But with spinning, it just is beyond me. I even took a class. I went to this place in Frenchtown, New Jersey called The Spinnery. And I went and I took a class. It was like private lessons. My assistant and I went together. And she taught us a drop spindle. And we got to do a little bit on a wheel. But it was not like, I wanted to know how to do the chunky coiled stuff. And this lady, she's, older. And I think it's a new thing. So she was like, I don't think she knew how to do it, to be honest. Or maybe it just would have taken longer than what the time we had. I don't know. She just was a little bit resistant, because I showed her examples of what I wanted to learn, and we weren't going there. So I don't know.
She wasn't having that.
No, she was not having it. I think it's like maybe she was like, oh God, sacrilege in a way. Because she was showing me like traditional yarn. And I was like, that's not really it. And then I realized.
I think there is like a group, like of people, of spinners who like, it's traditional or nothing.
Yeah.
And that's fine. You know, like sometimes I wish that I could get in the mindset to spin a really like thin. You know, sweater type yarn. But I just like, for the life of me, like I sit down and then try. I've tried before. But it always ends up
chunky. It just gets chunkier and chunkier and chunkier.
For real. So yeah, I don't know.
I think
it's kind of funny how people like get into their little bubbles.
Totally. And I think what I didn't realize was that I think she was teaching me basically step one, and that you have to feed it back through to do the coil, with thicker roving or whatever.
You have to have like a core and then have it
exactly. So it was like what I learned was basically making the core, I think. I guess. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. Probably. I mean, I spin my own core, so it is just like a plain like single.
Right.
So that's probably what you were doing.
I think so. Do you have any thoughts? Oh, okay. So yes, are you still taking people's scraps?
I am. Yes. I'm not the only one now that spins yarn scraps. I think in the beginning I was around 2016, 2017 when I started. There wasn't very many people doing it, but it's kind of blown up in recent years. And I try and like, you know, it's one of those things where like, I'm happy that other people are spinning yarn scraps, but also I'm like, man, like all that competition.
I know. But then the other thing is, do you want to be the only one doing it? Because do you have that time?
Say, you know, like I try and remind myself, like I can't spin all the yarn scraps in the world.
Yeah.
So like I'm you know, and people out there are doing awesome things spinning yarn scraps. So I'm happy that it's more mainstream now, that it's not like something that is so, you know, out of the box.
Right. Basically. Right. I mean, and so how much of your, I guess ideally, and how much do you want that to be a part of your business right now? Like, do you want to promote like being a person that takes the scrap? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Do you want a bunch of orders? Because I bet I could refer a bunch of people to you. I just wasn't sure if you were still doing it for other people.
I am still. There is a listing in my shop to have your yarn scraps made into new yarn. It's kind of one of those things where like spinning just kind of took over my business, and it became to the thing that sold, if that makes sense. Like my weavings, and to be fair, like they never did that well, but like when I look back on past work, as we all do, I'm like, well, it's probably because it wasn't that good.
No,
you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And I feel the same way when I look back at mine. Like weaving never took off for me as like a business thing, because I mean, yeah. And to be fair, I think I probably only made 15 total. No, 15 to 20. And I was like, outside of the commission ones, like ones I just made to try to sell it, you know, that weren't commissioned, and they didn't sell well. So I was like, oh, I guess this isn't my thing. And then, you know, that's why I just went into macrame, because it overtook everything. So you kind of go where the market tells you to go. Exactly.
Right. And, which is nice, but also like, there's a part of me that like kind of wishes that like, my business wasn't so heavily focused on spinning, that I could like easily sell a weaving, you know, because I've started to get more into that, and kind of trying to find my own style, which I feel like I'm getting there. For sure.
100%. Because when you post now, I know it's you. Like,
well, thank you.
They're so charming. I love your weaving style.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. I would love the orders. I would love them. But at the same time, like I hope that when people see like my feed or like stumble across it, like it's not just like, oh, there's the spinner. You know, I want to be like a well-rounded fiber artist, you know, and be able to dabble in multiple you know, techniques.
Well, for what it's worth, I think you are one of the most well-rounded, like for sure, fiber artists working out there that I've noticed. I mean, you're doing the spinning and the weaving and the ice dyeing, which I also want to talk about because you recently posted a time lapse that I am completely mesmerized by. Number one, because I think I've known what ice dyeing is, but never saw the process done like in a time lapse like that. So it's so cool. You guys, if you're wondering about ice dyeing, take a look at Ashley's account because it's super cool to watch.
Yeah. And that like, it kind of like blows my mind a little because those reels are like so easy to make.
Yeah.
You just like set the camera up and let that do its own thing. And it's just kind of funny. Like sometimes we spend so much time on reels and
maybe some of the best ones. Yeah, maybe some of the best ones are the most simple for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, ice dyeing is kind of a newer thing. I don't claim to be an expert by any means, but I like doing it. It's so much fun. It's kind of one of those things where you put all the colors down and you just kind of hope for the best. Like, I hope this turns out and doesn't look like, brown, muddy water or something.
Right.
So.
Has it ever turned out poorly for you? Or it is just brown, muddy water?
Not really. There's definitely ones that like could have been better.
Mm-hmm.
Like definitely those first few attempts.
Yeah. What's interesting though in this industry or whatever is that brown, muddy water used to, in my mind, conjure something negative, and now so many people embrace that palette. So
I know.
Like I never thought I would sell brown in my shop. I really didn't. I remember joking around with like Bridie a couple years ago, and we were like, ugh, no brown. And then the line of browns are like the ones that sell the best.
Really?
Yeah, like the neutral browns and the maples and rusts.
Wow. I mean, those are pretty colors.
They are, but it was never my like favorite palette. Like the fall palette was never actually my favorite palette. I like happier kind of colors, but thousands of people like it. So if you end up with brown muddy water, it's fine.
People still buy it, right?
Yeah. The whole like copper toned sort of palettes are what's the word I'm looking for? All the rage.
Oh,
so,
yeah. I have had some people ask for brown yarns lately, and I'm like, I just don't know if I can do it.
You're like, I don't own those colors, thanks.
Because it's like, I'd have to dye the wool, and I'd have to sort out brown yarn scraps. And like, it just doesn't seem very exciting for me. I know.
So. It feels very 70s to me. Like, they really loved the browns in the 70s.
Yes.
And maybe, I guess it's coming back around. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, personally, I don't know if you watched noticed in the spring, I kept getting all these like marketing emails that were like dopamine dressing, and like New York Magazine did this whole thing on dopamine dressing, which was like brights, everything like bright orange, bright yellow, bright purple. And I was like, oh, I can get behind this. It was like, it was kind of, I guess it's kind of 80s in a way, right? Like neons and stuff. But I feel like it was like we're coming out of the pandemic, more or less, whatever. So people like were in the mood for brights. And I was like, you know what? I never would have thought that I would offer things like that bright in the shop. But I'm like, you know what? Forget it. I'm going to try it out. So, we'll see what happens.
There was a time the last few months where people were really like wanting the neon yarns.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's unusual. It wasn't even something that like I came up with on my own. It was my husband. Like, he helps out and he does a lot of my bats. He did like a neon yarn, and it ended up being something that like sold out like immediately.
That's so cool.
Like, I wouldn't have thought that. I mean, me personally,
right.
I would have probably have never made that yarn.
Yeah, I think we're just thirsty. I think we're thirsty for like more joyful colors. Was that the chartreuse?
No, it was like a bright neon that had like white and black scraps in it, and
fun.
He like carded it up, and he was like, "You should do this one," and I was like.
Oh, that's so funny.
And I spun it and everybody went crazy for it. It was
Nice.
kind of nice. It was a good reminder to just to like get out of your own head a little bit sometimes.
For sure. Yeah. So. Yeah. Do you work with your husband a lot with Loom Denim? Like, is he a significant portion of the business?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. At this point, he makes about 99% of my bats. Wow. I basically lay the scraps out for him in the wool, and I say like, I need 1 or 2 bats, and he makes them for me.
That's awesome.
He's so much better at it than I am. Like, it was kind of like one of those, I hate making bats.
Really? I think that's the most
I don't
fun.
like to say that because like, I feel like it, breaks down the illusion.
No, it's fine. But also most of us don't like warping a loom. It's fine. Right.
So I don't know how it happened. I think one day he was like, can I help you? Like, I was stressed out about like how much stuff I had on my plate. And he's like, can I help you? And so I taught him how to make a bat. And once he learned, I was like, I'm never making a bat again.
That's so amazing. I love it.
So sometimes I will make a bat, like if I'm recording for a reel, but most of the other, it's him. And he also like sets all of my yarns. So he'll steam them or wet set them. And he helps out a lot with photography and video. So, but he's an artist in his own right.
Is he?
Yeah, he has a ceramics degree and he paints. So
cool. Is that what he does? Is that what he does like full time?
No, he was working retail for a while, and then he actually came to work for me
nice.
in August. Yeah.
Oh wow! So it is the full family business now.
It is. Things are so kind of like up in the air at the moment that we might have to like reevaluate things.
Yeah.
But hopefully temporarily, but we'll see. Just things are so expensive.
I know.
Unfortunately.
I know. Yeah. Products, shipping, everything has gone up. It's crazy.
Right. And like sales have gone down because everybody else is, they're in a bind as well. Like gas is crazy. Prices at the supermarket have like shot up. So I know everybody is kind of like in the same spot where they're trying to save money and work through their own stash. So
I know it's interesting. I am wondering, like, I'm like trying to figure out the factors of what's affecting the fiber market right now. And yeah, I mean, I think you're right. On one end, people are strapped. And then the other thing is like, I wonder how much competition has to play a part in it. And what I hope is not the case, but I do fear it that that interest is dying down.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It could be a lot of different factors that are
a little bit of each,
completely out of our control.
Totally, I know. Well, I hope I can throw you some more, at least some more people who want to spin their scraps, because I even though I am part of the consumer problem, I do love that you can you can take the scraps and make them into something new. I mean, it's such a good thing.
And it's amazing. Like when you do have your scraps spun into new yarn, I can look at that yarn and like see the person that the yarn scraps came from. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Moon and Yarn, Brienne.
Yeah.
I recently spun her scraps, and just when it was finished, I was like, oh my gosh, this looks like Brienne, like to a T.
That's amazing.
I even showed my husband and like showed him her Instagram account, and he was like, oh my gosh, like that's totally her. I can see it.
That's
and
awesome.
So, yeah, that's one of the things that I think is just so, like, one of the things I love about the process is, like the yarn just takes on a life of its own. Like, I don't have to do much other than, pair it with a wool and spin it. The yarn scraps do all the work.
Yeah. And then you see into the soul. You see into the soul of the maker. It's pretty cool.
It sounds cheesy though.
Kind of, but you know what? No, there's a lot to it though. Because it's like, they've been touching it. It's been, it's true. It's a part of their work and their ethos.
Their style and the colors that they use and the fibers that they gravitate towards.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's true. Oh, very cool. Well, I mean, we're about at an hour, but is there anything else you wanted to share? I think this was so nice, for me to hear what had gone on with Fibreshare, and I love, your spinning journey and all of it, honestly. And I loved finally getting to
for having me.
Oh, sure. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And giving me an opportunity to talk about especially Fibreshare, but everything else. I appreciate it.
Good. No, I'm so happy we finally got a chance to connect,
I know.
kind of in person or whatever. But thank you so much again.
Maybe
Ashley.
one day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then so just to close it out, just one more time, where people can find you.
Yeah. Loom Denim. So loomdenim.com, and that's loom as in LOOM and denim as in jeans. And then Instagram and TikTok, it's loom_denim. So right. I think that's all I'm on. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Ashley. I will be talking to you and see you on Instagram soon. Okay. Bye. Cindy. Check the show notes of each episode to get the website and Instagram for each of the fiber artists I speak with. Be sure to give them a follow. And you can view video from this podcast on neromastudio.com/thefiberartistpodcast. If you enjoy the Fiber Artist Podcast, go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you for listening.